Some people, when they hear MG or minimum guarantee, it's like a deposit. Like if you want to work with a brand, you need to show a gesture of good faith. You need to show that you are willing to invest in it. So you put down a deposit. This is a deposit for making this work. And if I can't sell the amount, then the deposit is yours.
One of the projects was with Rseraphim. Usually the K-pop group, when they release a new album, new single, then they also release new goods. Recently, we did the N-hyphen collaboration. So we kind of developed their N-hyphen's IP to interpret with our Wiggle Wiggle character and color. We make the goods. We release at the same time, especially when we launch our flagship store in Tokyo.
But when you look at licensing, normally we look at the brand extending into a different product category. So the brand actually doesn't allow another brand to overtake them. There's some sort of competition as well when you do brand collaboration.
When you work with a K-pop brand, do you pay them or do they pay you? Welcome to another episode of TFC Business Show. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. And today we are talking about the interesting topic of licensing. Okay, so I think specifically brand and character licensing. We have an astute panel today to discuss some of these things. They all own a lot of brands, right? So there's a lot to discuss. But today's episode is once again in partnership with FLAsia. So we want to see you there. And if you like today's discussion, you will get to speak with all of them at FLAsia 2025, happening on the 18th to 20th of September at MBS. Okay, so go to the link, book your ticket. We want to see you there. Okay, and we will be throwing a live show there also. So you come and say hi. Okay, we'll see you there. For a start, maybe you want to introduce yourself to our audience so that they get to know who you are and all that.
Hi, I'm Lily Park. I'm Korean and I'm the CEO of BMSMILE Singapore. So BMSMILE Singapore owns so many IPs and the brands, but I came here mainly discuss about our main IP, Wiggle Wiggle. So the BMSMILE Singapore is basically BMSMILE is a Korean company. So we are mainly focused on the Korean market and China and Japan. And we just established our BMSMILE Singapore entity to expand our business to the more global and focus on the Southeast Asia and even more and beyond.
Yeah, but I think you just started already doing very well, right? There was the, what's it? The Ferris wheel, Singapore Flyer, and then there was an Innisfree partnership. Quite a few brands already, right?
Yes, and there is the even more exciting upcoming projects.
Like what?
NDA.
Embargo. Stay tuned. Yeah, and that's a big part of a licensing deal. We can talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, and for our audience that don't know you, would like to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, I'm Edmund. So currently I'm overseeing the licensing division for Avex. We are actually a global entertainment company headquartered in Japan. So there are several business pillars that we have. We have celebrity management. We also have a lot of music labels that we own, as well as we do a lot of live events production. And of course, there's licensing, right? Licensing, of course, are one of our favorite topic for today. Then, in terms of the licenses that we carry, we actually work with a lot of international IPs. Not many people know, but we actually work with Pokémon.
Ooh.
We have a JV with Sanrio. So we manage Hello Kitty in Southeast Asia.
So the Hello Kitty run is your making?
The team.
Okay.
It's a team. We also have Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic is also under you guys.
Yes, Sonic the Hedgehog. Then, there are other brands. We are also doing sports licensing. We represent FC Barcelona in Southeast Asia as well as Japan. So for all the football fans out there, there's a lot to see coming up.
Okay.
Then, of course, today we have COL with us. So we also represent the Legend of Hay, which I think Bryan later will share much more on the IP. Fantastic IP. There's a lot coming out for the IP and, definitely looking forward.
So you license his brands, you represent his brands to be licensed in Singapore or in the region.
Correct. So he's my boss.
Yeah, wow. But introduce yourself, right?
Hi everybody, my name is Bryan Tan. I'm the Senior Business Advisor for COL Group. So COL, as a brief introduction, it's headquarters in Beijing. We've been around for 25 years. Primarily, we are known for being a IP powerhouse in China. So we have about 5.5 million web novels and characters and IPs.
5.5 million?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, we also have about 4.5 exclusive writers that produces all this content for us. Now, once you have these IPs, we then transform them into animation, movies. And I think most recently, our best performing business unit is actually the micro dramas. The micro dramas, you might have seen them per episode, is about
Very
1
hard
to
to
2
run
minutes.
away from them.
Yeah. And I guess today I'll be talking more about a licensor perspective, right? So based on all these IPs we have, the one that we will talk about would be mainly The Legend of Hey. It's a sort of a 2D animation that we just launched the movie last month. So far, it's already surpassed the box office tickets for the movie 1. So it's doing quite well. And we can't wait to share it with the rest of the world. And I'm depending on Edmund to help me spread it to Southeast Asia.
So actually, why do you need to work with Edmund for something like that? So I'm trying to understand the IP licensor thinking, right? So you guys run the power. You have a machine at the back to run all these content. Essentially you want to build up a character, build up a brand, build up a storyline around this, and then make sure that character or that brand goes viral, right? So that everybody knows them. Then the licensee will kind of sign from you for various different things, right? So that's the broad idea. It's a fair statement, right? So yeah, then you are doing all these things on your own. As a team, you guys are running all these. Then why you need like a distributor type of arrangement with them? Yeah.
For example, for Legend of Hey, because it's only been well known in China and Japan. So Japan, then we have a lot of partnerships with big brands like Bandai, One Piece. But for the rest of the world, US, Europe, and Southeast Asia, it's relatively unknown because we're very new here. So in order to get partnerships with the local partners, the local distributors, we are sort of starting from ground zero. So by working with agents, especially with established companies like Avex, the best agent, because they have
no choice to say lah.
Yeah. And they represent some of the best brands in the world, right? Pokémon, Hello Kitty, Sonic. So they have already established a track record of partnerships within this region. So it makes things much faster to work with them than for us to build everything from scratch and hire a whole team. So that's the reason why.
Tell us more, because you guys chose a different strategy, right? As a brand owner, you guys come into the market on your own, right? You're setting up a team here. So what's the thought process?
Actually, we directly enter into the market to China and Japan. So I believe our global expansion just started last year. So China and Japan is similar to the Korean culture. So we are very I believe we are kind of successfully landed in each market. When we came to the Southeast Asia market, it's a different climate, different culture, different people. So I'm from actually Deloitte. So I've been working for Deloitte Malaysia and Singapore. So I lived in Malaysia for 12 years. So when our HQ, the founder, I discussed with basically the founder of the company, BMSMILE, we discussed. And at the beginning, I joined BMSMILE Korea as a head of the global business. Then we discussed, we wanted to actually franchise, or we need to find the partners like Avex to each countries and communicate with some of the countries, but realized that I think Singapore, from my personal experience, Singapore is a perfect country for the regional headquarters role. From my Deloitte experience, I didn't really understand about the retail market licensing part. So that is the moment that, Singapore is also, again, for the branding and, of course, the licensing. All the headquarters are based in Singapore. Yeah. So we decided to come to Singapore to, of course, market-wise, directly enter into the Singapore market for B2C. But for the B2B, we are actually looking for partners from here.
They are matchmaking on the show.
We just came to this market and our operation started our office opened January of this year.
Wow.
So it's just 7 months. We've been talking to so many brands international-wise and the collaboration licensing with a regional perspective. So I believe that Singapore is really the perfect market.
Maybe help us understand, right? So tuning in, we have a lot of professionals and we also have a lot of tauques, right? So when they are thinking about potentially brand licensing, character licensing, because there are many types of licensings, right? But where we just focus on brand and character licensing, like maybe put Sonic on an event, do a Hello Kitty run or wiggle something, like a perfume or something, right? So all these type of stuff, how does it begin? In terms of a discussion, how should people think about, when they are even exploring this idea of licensing?
This is actually the question I throw it to myself. What is the licensing basically? Is a brand or IP character? And so licensing is, I think, the easiest way I explain to people. Let's say my character or design or my brand, I lend to the another partner and getting royalty. So that is, I think, the easiest way of explanation of the licensing business, because there is a brand collaboration as well. That is kinds of a collaboration. It's not like, of course, we call it, there is so many ways of explaining collaboration. But for example, like Gucci and Adidas collaboration, I believe they are more like, it's not licensing, it's like a brand working together, and they do the co-marketing, they do the co-production. That part is, I don't think is under the licensing's head.
Depends. Sometimes the collabs will include different licensing. For example, right, I used to work on a project with Sesame Street and Adidas. So it's actually two different licensors, right? But then as the company that's producing the apparels, we want to use both elements of these two brands. So we actually have to pay royalties to both brands. But it's positioned as a partnership, as a collab product. So in that case, licensing still sort of comes into the picture, because we have to do it that way. But you're right as well. If it's purely just a brand working with another brand, then maybe they don't need to do licensing to each other. They just collaboration, partnerships.
Can you elaborate a little bit? Under what scenario did you need to pay licenses for Sesame Street and Adidas? What were you guys doing? People need to know, like, you know, the thought process, right? Under what scenario, you know, did you guys kind of like need to sign license with both? Like, what was the entity that you guys were doing?
So this will be for a company, Mighty Jacks, right? So a local company, we do a lot of pop culture toys, collectibles, right? One of our flagship products is a artist collaboration from New York called Jason Freeney. So he's famous for doing things that's always dissected half. So you might see some of his work. So we produce a lot of products using his signature style. So we put it onto One Piece, put it onto My Little Pony, we put it onto Sesame Street characters.
You split up My Little Pony?
We did. We cut them into the half. Yes. We make it cute though.
Okay.
Think of it as an artist style, artistic kind of a take on this product, right? And then what happened was that Adidas, they really liked what we did with Sesame Street. So they're like, hey, can we use that and feature it put it into our sneakers, onto our jackets, because we also like Jason Freeney's art. And we also helped Jason Freeney do a art exhibition. They really wanted those designs, his style, to go onto their apparels. So then we have to go back to Sesame Street and say, hey, Adidas wants to collaborate. How to work out the mechanics, the licensing side of it. Because if we were to pay the full licensing rates for both sides, that means that the end product is going to be really expensive, because you got to mark up both sides, right? So usually in that deal, they said, okay, we'll split half. So as in, we will cut our royalties in half, and then Sesame Street agrees to cut in half as well for the collaboration, and then we run a limited run event for that produced product. So there's actually 3 licensors involved in the case. There's Jason Freeney as artist, there's Sesame Street, and then there's Adidas as a brand, right?
From your company's structure, essentially you have a long-term license with like Jason Freeney, right? Essentially, right? So that's like your long-running license. And then because of this seasonal arrangement, then both, you know, Adidas and Sesame Street came in together on this particular one, right? And then you guys produced the merchandising to be sold on their shelves, right? That's kind of the structure.
Exactly, yeah. So pop culture stuff, collab is always
all sorts of stuff,
selling
man.
very
All
well.
sorts of permutation.
For Wiggle Wiggle, we are like a lifestyle IP. So that means we don't have a like strong character like Pokémon or like Hello Kitty, but our IP is more like a lifestyle, like giving people like a happiness, like a vibrant colors and wheat feeling. So we had like 100 over brands collaboration history so far. In terms of the category, we are just working with everyone. We even work with the K-pop stars. We work with like Hello Kitty, Baskin Robbins. We work with the Mini Cooper. We work with the airline, like Korean Airline, Air Busan, or even like Incheon Airport. Back to the royalty scheme, how this works is, of course, if you go in the detail, then there are so many different types of royalty or share, or even like partnership to sell in the different channel, both channel and so on. But for the straightforward, like very basic kinds of structure is, let's say the hotel, like 1 5-star hotel, wants to use our IP to decorate one of their rooms. One of the hotel, they are asking us how we can work together. What we suggest is, because Wiggle Wiggle IP is more like colorful and we have a products and we have a more like vibrant feeling, so we suggest to decorate our IP to make it fun swimming pool section with a bar. So in that kinds of section, we call it like a space takeover. So they use our IP to decorate the whole section, and then we make the very cool kinds of bar. Then we are charging IP, separate like a IP fee for the space only.
Like you said, right, there are a lot of different permutations in terms of how companies can work with brands and licensors, right? So something like that would be usually what you do is like a flat fee, one time charge to build it up, type of situation, and no long-term running royalty. Like what's
So that is one of the example for the space, and then the most of the IP like royalty scheme is applies to the like a brand.
Yeah, so like merchandising,
yes,
selling.
merchandise.
Okay.
I can say one of the cosmetic brand we did a collaboration in Korea. So they pay us a royalty, and there is a few different types of products. So we always ask what is your purpose of that product using our IP to produce for that project. So one of the item is like a GWP. They want to use like a special exclusive item using our IP to merge with their brand. First product is they want to sell to the retail. And the second is like a GWP. Then the retail price using our IP, then we apply royalty based on the retail price. And of course, the percentage is a certain percentage in the market.
Is there a reference, like what is the range usually in the market?
The reality really applies across differently for each of the IPs.
Of course.
Right? But if you look at the standard rate, right, it's either you base it on retail or you base it on wholesale.
Yeah.
Right? Standard rate is on retail 7 to 8%.
7 to 8%.
Depending on the product category.
Of course.
Then wholesale is normally double.
How is wholesale licensing? How does it work?
It really depends, because if you have a licensee who's a distributor, they typically like to work on a wholesale price. Right? But if you're a licensee that is a retailer, or they do direct to retail sales, then they probably prefer base it on the retail price. So it depends on the licensee's role.
So let's say somebody runs like 10 pharmaceutical shops, right? Let's say, right? So those are retailers.
Yes.
Right? And then when they work with you, that's kind of like the margins that they are looking at. So as compared to if somebody produces a water bottle and then works with you guys at the distribution level, that will be 60-70%. And then they get to sell out to whoever they want, and then they mark up from there.
That understanding is correct.
The 7 to 8%, the percentage also based on the like MOQ and the project scale and size.
Is it usually inverse? The bigger the project, the lower the...
Of course. It's about the volume and also how strong this project is in terms of the whole project budget. We also kind of adjust with our royalty rate. For example, in this war, we believe everybody talking about MG. So minimum guarantee. So the whole project, because of course there is a different kind of category or like how synergy the project will be, but also the minimum guarantee project will be set usually. Then if let's say we discuss and then you say, oh, I want to use the wiggle IP to adapt into this notebook, and then I want to sell. Then how much do you want to sell? Then like we are like design so many things, conditions go in. Then for example, the project is let's say only 10,000. A lot of IP companies, they have their own internal set. So of course, your IP is strong, then the MG is very huge. Then the royalty rate is smaller. For example, like the brand or IP wants to be more like aggressive, then the MG can be reduced, but royalty rate can say higher than the bigger project.
Some people, when they hear MG or minimum guarantee, they're like, what is that, right?
Yeah.
So sort of the easiest way I can explain it is like a deposit. Like if you want to work with a brand, you need to show a gesture of good faith. You need to show that you are willing to invest in it. So you put down a deposit this is a deposit for making this work. And if I can't sell the amount, then the deposit is yours.
Essentially, there is room to discuss, right? So if you want to get to know them, come for FLAsia, okay? 18th to 20th September at MBS, and you can get to connect with them to discuss further. But I wanted to ask you a little bit on that whole like K-pop. Right, so K-pop is like the thing, right? Everybody knows K-pop. I mean, I don't watch K-pop, but it's always a thing, right? So when you work with a K-pop brand, like you said just now, like do you pay them or do they pay you? Just so I understand, how does this thing work?
I think for us, it's more like
a joint project.
Yeah,
to
joint
level
project.
up your brand like that, right?
Yes. So
okay.
one of the project was with Rizerapine. It's a girl group, famous girl group. Usually the K-pop group, when they release a new album, new single, then they also release new goods.
Oh, okay.
So when they have produced the new goods, that was the case using our IP to make their new goods looks more like witty and cute and colorful. So that was one of the case. And recently we did an N-hyphen collaboration. So we kind of developed their N-hyphen's IP to use, interpret with our Wiggle Wiggle character and color, and we make the goods. So we release at the same time, and especially when we launch our flagship store in Tokyo and flagship store in China, we can leverage both fans, and especially like N-hyphen fans, that when we have like one section for this N-hyphen Wiggle Wiggle collaboration goods.
So is it common for licensors, like licensor, to then also put up capital for merchandising? Right? Or is it a thing? Or is it just like when you say like you joint venture, right? So I got a big brand, I want to work with you, then we joint venture in this. Usually, where does it stop, right? From a licensor perspective, it is just like, I will reduce my percentages, such that it's a joint venture, or is it, I will also join you in this like, merchandising capital, like how does it work?
So one of the case we are currently working on it is NDA. They have a specialties on the product. And they also, because this is the beauty about licensing collaboration, because they have their very legacy product and brand, and then they have a quality. But sometimes they also want to try the other category, but it's like a little bit like a risky for them to try the other category. So then, because we are like lifestyle IP, and then we have a variety of goods, so they actually pick what they want to try. Then using both collaboration brand IP to basically create their own product, as well as reproduce whatever they want for that new project.
So you also join in the risk, right? To do that together, essentially.
That structure
is common.
It's actually one of the common and the most basic kinds of our collaboration project, because basically we produce, then we sell to our partner.
What about on you guys? Like, is there such an arrangement? Like, do you guys do those kind of things?
There is definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Right? But like what you correctly mentioned, right? There has to be a good brand fit. The brand fit is the pertinent point that you probably need to look at on what each brands bring to the table. Right? Of course, you can leverage on each other's customer segment. But that's only one part of it, right? We have been talking a lot on brand collaborations. But when you look at licensing, normally we look at the brand extending into a different product categories, right? So sometimes chances is, if let's say Apple, right, and they're going to produce earpods with Pokémon on it, right? The truth is that, is there added incentive, right? Is there added incentive knowingly that Apple itself has already a very strong IP presence in the market, right? Most likely they will go from another angle, right? They will look at product categories that they're not into yet, right? But Apple, of course, let's just take a far-fetched one, right? They are not into apparel. They've never done apparel, right? But they think that, hey, okay, having Pokémon on the apparel makes sense, because end of the day, it's a new category for them. There's new added revenue streams. Then it makes sense to take the license, right? If not, they might come into a situation whereby the brand actually doesn't allow another brand to overtake them. There's some sort of competition as well when you do brand collaboration.
For her, right, like at BMSMILE, they are the brand owner, right? My assumption is they can be very flexible in how they partner with different people.
Yes.
But you are the agency here, right? You represent all these different brands, right? So there is probably a narrower possibility, working with a local brand partner. Is that a fair statement? Because I'm not trying to make you sound small, but I'm trying to prime our audience, so that they understand. You talk to an agency, right? We represent these brands, yes, but we cannot be as crazy as some other people that vertically represent themselves, right? Is that a fair statement?
The truth is, you see, we work with a whole suite of IPs. Right, of course, even Legend of Hey, we could consider, working together with Wiggle. Each of these brand owners, as an agency, we have to align all our expectations. Of course, we need to understand what the brand owner actually wants, right? And what's their current needs, right? If let's say they are looking to leverage or they are looking to extend their brand into just more product categories, then of course we try to align. We try to look for partners or rather key players that would actually make their category grow. And each of these brands cater to a different segment.
Is there an example?
Let's look at Pokemon. Right, the truth is that Pokemon reaches all age groups, right? Both genders. Typically, Pokemon is an evergreen brand. The reality is that what does Pokemon need that they don't already have? They have a lot of fan base. Now it's about maintaining that fan base, right? To a certain extent, it's not about growth even, right? But of course, if there's a chance, why not? So maintaining that fan base for what reason now, right? Sometimes people will ask, hey, okay, why do you need to do licensing, right? Pokemon, everybody knows Pokemon, right? You have Pokemon Go. That game itself is like everybody's playing it, right? So there's no need for them to do the additional step to extend the brand further. Different IPs, they have a different strategy into the market. I think, the Legend of Hey, there's a movie launch coming up, right? So, there are different periods of times whereby, for that particular IP, where it's all about timing, it's all about context, right? There's a movie coming out definitely during that point in time. There's a higher chance of doing licensing. Chances is more people know about the IP, more people will be interested to try to explore what could they now leverage on the IP. With Legend of Hey, with the movie coming out, there's a lot of opportunities for merchandise.
Can you expand the discussion a little bit? So let's say what you were saying about there's a movie screening that is dropping, right? Everybody knows, this is going to happen. And then all the 包价 one, you don't need to 加 one, right? Because the movie theater will pick it up, right? They will take up the whole thing. That is their vertical. Maybe you can help us open up our minds on what are the other possibilities, that you've seen some other brands do it during a movie.
Just imagine, right? So there's a movie launch coming up and we want to rah it up, right? So naturally, it will be in theaters and then you will have your popcorn buckets and all that. But beyond that, theaters are usually in shopping malls. Now, if you have a shopping mall activation, then the entire mall can be dressed up as the Legend of Hey, with the characters and everything. So then there could be example, a 2 months campaign for this Legend of Hey, where different shop or retail brands inside the mall could participate. Like, if you buy how much stuff, you get a chance to redeem tickets or get this special limited edition Xiao Hui product. So then you can go from the theater to the shopping mall. And then beyond that, you can do a lot of pop-up activations to get people to see. So you will work with other brands. You can start to really expand out and try to get as much awareness as possible, from theaters to shopping malls to then even running ads on, for example, the buses that goes by. But I think pop-up activations or even doing viral campaigns, just get people to see it. These are all part of the whole activation that then once a different brand see it, they may say, hey, everybody's talking about that product right now. Or this brand right now, we want to catch on the hype. So we want to work with the brand. So I think that's one way that we can then very quickly expand the brand exposure.
I think it is quite typical for big retailers. Like I won't be surprised Uniqlo comes and sign it, right? And then during the launch, it happens, right? So those kind of big retailers or Mandai Zoo or Capital Land, a big mall will sign something. Those are big boys, right? They will play that game, right? So, but I think we also want to reach more mature SMEs. They have gotten their things together, and they want to go to the next level and they're exploring something. So they're not the ones that are still kind of figuring out, right? They have their product market fit, think for people I don't know, Lim Chi Guan like that, right? They've been around, they will always be around, but they might want to look at other things, right? Help me understand, for this sort of companies, right? People at this scale, mature in their industry, stable cash flow, but then maybe second generation take over or third generation take over, suddenly want to try something new. Have you had any kind of partnerships that are like that you can talk a little bit about?
Recently, we are discussing about exactly that level and that models of the business. So there is already the first SME, because a small medium companies. So one of the good example case was we collaborate with Epco. It's one of the keyboard, but the Wiggle brands. One of the popular category is the Epco Wiggle collaboration keyboard. So very colorful and and then the mouse and even calculation and all this so this is one of our best selling item. When we bring these items to outside of Korea, people also still buy, and then there is a Epco logo. So that is also, I believe, that one of the way we can expand together. So one of the good project was Belligum. So Belligum is actually like one of the big companies, the IP, but they are just like they are also famous, but after we collaborate with IP and IP. So Belligum is a pink bear, and then Wiggle Wiggle we have a color, and then Daisy, and like so many like combination. And we are also produce a new product, and it got so successful. Everybody love it, and from that we grow together. So that is I think one of the kinds of SME brands. So we are like
those are great examples.
expanding together.
Do you guys have some examples to share?
Something that is currently in the market, for Sonic the Hedgehog, we're actually working with HDB. We did the activation for 27 HDB malls. It could be something like that. Normally, you don't think that HDB would be doing a license collaboration. But I think times have changed. They know that it's a need to really drive traffic. That's one thing. Let's not look at it from a commercial aspect, but rather how it brings together the entire community in the heartlands. That is what a key, achievement, I think, from that collaboration.
SME brand, example be like Bangawang Solo. So we will happen to know the owner as well. So for example, let's say Legend of Hey is a 2D animation and it's targeting at young children. Usually the young children are the key demographics for us, because then as they grow up, they'll like it even more, right? So as young children, they have birthday parties. So you want the cakes to all have the design of characters on it. So if they watch the movie, they love it, they'll be like, oh, Mama, Papa, I want to have the cake. So it's part of the strategy of like, if we want to go specifically, say, into birthday cakes, character design cakes for young children, then we will look at the current SMEs that's doing it, and then they could be on our pipeline.
Fair. But I think the principles are there, right? Smaller deals, you expect a bigger percentage cut. Bigger deals, the percentage can kind of come down, and then there's a lot of room in the middle to discuss what is the ultimate look and feel of these licensing deals, right? So don't need to shut yourself off just because you are like a mid-sized SME. A few retail stores, you have a few product line that sells very well. I think that's a good space to kind of look at some of these things, right? So maybe we talk about the not so good example, right? Like what are some like wrong things to do when it comes to like establishing a licensing deal, or like what are some problems that I think a lot of people need to look out for when they think about entering a partnership like that, or maybe just kind of go from there.
I think to keep the good partnership is, of course, like we have to make sure the numbers. So when you're getting into the deals, like, you have to keep the numbers, and of course there is a minimum guarantee and so on. So the important thing is the territory and the channel, sales channel, because some, for example, they want to sales like offline and they're online, then they found out that they actually using their own different kinds of distributor in other country to sell. Then it can actually crash the territory like a licensing. Another deal for us, we always are giving like exclusivity to the brand, for example. So when we have a collaboration with a cosmetic brand, then we want to make sure that we don't work with another cosmetic brand at the same time, because it's all about the synergy and impact. It's not just about the revenue and number, actually. One of the example is we signed the, let's say, fashion brand with one territory, and then the other territory fashion brand, like using their distributor to sell in that territory, where we have already signed the exclusive. Then the whole situation is like very complicated.
What usually happens when that happens?
It's a legal action can be happen, because we gave them the contract is exclusivity to you, then you believe and you it's actually in the contract. Then suddenly the other party is using the other way to sell in the same. No, that is not we shouldn't do that. I think that is one of the things when we're getting into the licensing deal, take it or note that to keep whatever we promise each other, and we need to deliver in that way, because it can crush to the another exclusive or another contract in other region.
What are the usual parameters and usual clauses? Like there's a regional, there's probably a time period, like any other things that people will need to know when they work with you guys?
Firstly, of course, like the purpose of the product. For example, like It's whether it's a retail or it's a GWP or it's a PWP, or do you want to we sign with you, then are you going to wholesale the market? So all these things are very important point we have to discuss initially. Then the second is, of course, like a marketing and like how we want to give an impact.
Is there like a marketing spend usually as a clause inside the contract? Like how much do you expect me to spend on marketing? Do you do that?
Actually, we don't
You
really.
don't,
Yeah.
okay.
And then there is, of course, the territory and the sales channel, whether you want to sell in like that kinds of product or like whatever things in the online or offline or your pop-up or, so all these channel have to be clear. Also, if let's say like then we have to understand what is the actual supply cost. So the licensee or the brand needs to show us the proof of the actual supply cost, because that is the amount we need to apply for our royalty, for example.
So if today my supply costs go up because of tariff, right? It's a real problem, right?
Yes.
Because of tariff, my supply costs go up. Do I come back to you and say my supply costs go up? Because you make a percentage on my supply costs. So that is what you expect.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Okay, then if my supply costs go down, do I come back to you?
Yes.
And then you will adjust your so essentially you will hold the same percentage, but then you will get a smaller cut now because our reference number has come down.
Yes, of course.
That is the mutual understanding.
Actually, even the supply cost went down. It's actually good news. The main is the collaboration is so successful. The demand is high. So there is a MOQ. We have a lot of this kind of case. So if the MOQ is high, for example, one of the successful collaboration case, within 2 days, sold out. Because we are not sure, so we just put a minimum amount of the product's quantity to produce. Then it's so successful. So of course, with 10 times higher MOQ we order, of course the supply cost is lower.
Ultimately, the volume makes up for it, right? Essentially, as a partner, you still get more, although the cost per item has come down as a reference to the deal.
It's a bit different from licensor side. I feel like if it's a pure licensor, there's no partnerships, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just licensing out, let's say, the character or SME or a company to make products. Let's say there's a tariff issue, the cost goes up. I mean, what we actually expect them to do is the licensees may say, hey, we actually need to adjust the retail price to cover the cost. They would still need to sort of work with us to say, originally our forecast and our proposed retail price was this. Now we've got to change it. And then we, as a brand, we have to say, okay, we can agree with that, then you can change it. But usually we won't be like, going back to the contract to say, hey, the percentage I could adjust because you've got higher tariff costs, or the MG's got to go a bit lower to help you out. Because once the contract is usually signed, right, it follows that. Then we try to adjust other things that is still scalable or flexible, like retail pricing or about discount you can give. Those usually are not stated in the contract.
Can I put certain clauses inside the contract, that indicate like outsized impact activities, right? Essentially, right? Where something happened. Yeah. Some like doomsday clause, right?
Yes.
Something happened, then this is voided, or this something, it needs to be changed.
There's usually a force-majeure clause.
These clauses are normal and it's mutually understandable.
Yes.
And usually what would that look like? What are the kind of like parameters for these type of clauses?
One example, right? Let's say
Volcano.
Yeah, let's say there's a volcano eruption and then the whole warehouse is destroyed, all the products are gone, and they have to claim insurance and everything. And then by right, the launch date of the product is supposed to be this date, but it has to be pushed back because it can't be helped in a way. Then we won't legally go after them for missing the deadline because we have to understand that that's something that, they're protected. So that would be one example.
Okay, so essentially, for all you tuning in, there is some of this protection that as a licensee, you can put in, to of course everybody sign off, that means everybody agree right? But in the industry there are practices that allows you to have force majeure and some of these things to protect the doomsday scenario, right? And everybody is understanding of it. Any last things you want to add on that?
I think, most brand owners, they are negotiable and nice, right? To say that they follow strictly to contract, yes, but at the same time, I think they are always looking at ways how they can help out the licensee. Because end of the day, they are the ones that is also helping to extend the brand into the market, right? So there's always a bit of give and take. For example, something happens, there's always this opportunity or this way of lengthening the contracts at the same rates. It's possible. Of course, it varies from brand to brand and also depends on the product category. On that note, don't have to be too fearful on that part. Most importantly, you must know that now licensing a brand, how does it help you? Whether it's going to allow you to leverage, allow you to gain instant brand equity. Maybe your sell-through will be better. So what is now in it for you to become a licensee? This has to be a properly thought through process. It's never a short-term thing. You're looking at contracts easily 3 to 5 years.
So usually how long will arrangement take to discuss?
As fast as a month,
Okay.
as long as 1 year.
So if you want to get to know their brands, come for the FLAsia 2025, 18th to 20th September. And I think you guys will be doing some panels over there, right?
Yes.
So if you want to hear more from them, you can sign up for the conference ticket. I think we have a 20% discount. We'll put the discount code in the link below. Okay? So yeah, and come and support us. Yes. So any last words, for our fellow SME bosses out there?
I think, of course, come for the event, right? You learn much more about licensing. The reason why a lot of SMEs or maybe even corporations, they haven't ventured into licensing is because they don't understand how it works, right? So there's always this fear that, hey, okay, perhaps this is not a good marketing strategy. If you have a good concept of it, you know how it works, you start looking out for the IPs that is suitable for you. Eventually, I think it's a totally new market that you can play with.
And if they want to connect with you, is there a good place to connect with you?
For COL, if you want to talk about IPs, you contact Avex and Edmund.
That's on LinkedIn, man.
Okay.
For Wiggle Wiggle, we have, of course, like on Instagram, wigglewiggle.singapore. Then also we have HQ's website, but more for the international audience, wigglewiggle.global.com. If you come to the licensing fair, we are the biggest booth.
Okay.
And then for this fair, because I think we also want to also let people know that what is how IP works is we are giving our Wiggle Wiggle IP to design their booth, like registration booth and the arch and also even the lanyard.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and we definitely want to see you at the FLAsia 2025. More information in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and I think we had a great discussion around licensing and all the ins and outs of it. So come for the event, you get to meet them in person and then we can continue the discussion. Meanwhile, thank you for tuning into TFC Business Show. We will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.